I tried. I want you to understand that before anything else, before the explanations, before the details, before you form any opinion about what happened or what did not happen, I tried in every way I knew how. I reached out. I apologized. I wrote. I waited. I changed. I sacrificed parts of myself. I never thought I would be willing to sacrifice, and still, it was not enough. Still, she did not come back. There is a specific kind of pain that comes not from giving up, but from giving everything you have and watching it still not be enough. That is the pain I have been living with, and today I'm going to tell you exactly what that felt like. My name is Prince Hamdan, and this is the story of everything I tried and the moment I realized it was already too late. Most people assume that when a relationship ends, there is always a clear villain, a clear moment where one person did something unforgivable and the other person had no choice but to leave. But real life is almost never that simple. Real life is 1,000 small moments that pile on top of each other until the weight becomes impossible to carry. And by the time you look up and realize how heavy everything has become, the person standing across from you is already exhausted, already halfway out the door, already decided. I did not understand that in the beginning. I kept thinking that if I could just explain myself clearly enough, if I could just find the right words or the right gesture, everything could still be fixed. What I did not realize was that fixing was no longer the question. The question had already changed, and I was still answering something she had stopped asking. Let me tell you about who she was. Not in a way that turns her into a symbol or a character in someone else's story, but in a way that actually mattered. She was the kind of person who did not need the palace, who did not need the title or the attention or any of the things that surround a life like mine. She was grounded in a way that I genuinely admired. When everything around me felt loud and performative and structured by expectation, she was quiet, real. She had no interest in being seen with me. She had interest in actually knowing me. And for someone like me, who has spent his entire life being observed and analyzed and put inside a version of himself that was designed for public consumption, that kind of genuine interest was something I had never fully experienced before. She did not see Prince Hamdan, she saw the man underneath that name. And I loved her for it, in a way I did not even fully understand at the time. But somewhere along the way I started taking that for granted, not intentionally, not consciously, but slowly, in the way that happens when you become comfortable with something precious and stop treating it as precious. My responsibilities kept growing. My world kept demanding more of my attention, and I kept telling myself that she understood, that she was strong enough, that the love between us was solid enough to survive a little neglect. That is one of the most dangerous lies a person can tell themselves. That love survives neglect because it is strong. Strong love does not survive neglect. It just takes longer to break. When things first began to fall apart, I did not immediately go into panic. I went into explanation mode. I sat down with her and I talked. I laid out every reason, every context, every factor that had led to the distance between us. I was thorough. I was honest. I thought if she could just see the full picture the way I saw it, she would understand. But understanding is not the same as feeling okay. She understood everything I said. She had always been intelligent enough to understand. What she could not do was keep accepting understanding as a substitute for change. And that distinction, I missed it completely in those early conversations. So I tried something else. I tried presence. I cleared my schedule in ways I had never cleared it before. I showed up. I made time that I had previously claimed did not exist. I thought if she could see me physically choosing her, choosing to be in the room, choosing to put everything else aside, she would feel it. She would feel the effort. And for a brief while, I think she did. There were moments where things felt lighter, where laughter came back into spaces that had gone quiet, where I genuinely believed we were moving forward. But what I did not realize was that presence alone cannot rebuild what broken trust has damaged. You cannot simply show up and expect the wounds to close on their own. Wounds need words. They need honesty. They need the kind of vulnerability that I had never been very good at offering. I wrote her poems. If you know anything about me, you know that poetry is not a performance for me. It is not something I do for an audience or for attention. When I write, I am giving away something real, something that lives in the most private parts of who I am. I wrote her things I had never written for anyone. Words that came from a place so raw and unguarded that even putting them on paper felt like an act of exposure. I shared them. I hoped they would reach her the way spoken words had failed to. And some of them did reach her. I could see it in the way she received them, in the brief softness that crossed her expression before the walls came back up. But poems cannot replace decisions. They cannot undo the patterns that have already been set. And eventually she told me, not cruelly but clearly, that beautiful words from someone who keeps making the same choices are just beautiful words, nothing more. Then I tried something I'd never done before. I asked for help. I went to people in my family. I asked for guidance. I humbled myself in ways that did not come naturally to me. I spoke to my father. I sought advice from people I trusted. I was willing to be told I was wrong, willing to sit with the discomfort of being corrected by people whose opinions I deeply respected. And they helped me see things more clearly. They helped me identify the specific moments where I had failed her. And with that clarity, I went back to her. This time not with explanations or poetry or presents. This time with genuine acknowledgement, with an apology that had no defense attached to it. Just truth, just accountability, just me, stripped of everything, saying, I see exactly what I did, and I am sorry. She listened. She always listened. That was one of the things I admired most about her. Even when she was hurting, she would still sit and listen with full attention. She heard everything I said, and when I was finished, she was quiet for a long time. And then she said something I have carried with me every day since. She said that she believed me. She believed that I was sorry. She believed that I had genuinely tried to understand what went wrong. But she said that she had spent so long waiting for this version of me to show up, that by the time he arrived, she had already learned how to live without him. And she was not sure she could unlearn that. That sentence. That one sentence. It rewired something in my understanding of what was happening between us. Because until that moment I've been operating under the assumption that time was on my side. That as long as I kept trying, kept improving, kept showing up differently, eventually she would come back to me. But she was telling me something completely different. She was telling me that time had not been waiting for me to catch up. Time had been moving her forward, away from the pain, away from the uncertainty, into a version of herself that no longer needed what she had once needed from me. I had spent all this time trying to get back to something that no longer existed in the same form, and I had not even noticed. I tried one final time. I would not go into all the details because some things deserve to remain private. But I tried. I offered things I had never offered before. I made commitments I had never made before. I stood in front of her with everything on the table, and I asked her to choose us one more time, not for me, but for what we had been at our best, for the version of us that had felt so real and so rare. And she looked at me with something that was not anger and was not coldness. It was something closer to compassion. She said that she loved me, past tense and present tense, all mixed together in a way only she could manage. She said the love had never been the question. It had never been the problem. The problem was that love alone had stopped being enough to hold the two of them together through everything else that kept getting in the way. And she was not willing to keep testing that truth, hoping for a different result. After that conversation, I went home and I sat with the silence of what had just happened. And I realized something that I had been avoiding for a long time. Some things cannot be fixed no matter how hard you try. Not because the love is gone, not because the effort is absent, but because the timing ran out. Because two people can be genuinely right for each other and still find themselves standing on opposite sides of a moment that cannot be crossed. I had tried everything. Everything I knew, everything I could think of. Everything I was capable of giving. And it was still too late. Not because she stopped loving me, but because I had waited too long to become the man she needed. And by the time I finally got there, she had already found peace in a life that did not include waiting for me. I am Prince Hamdan, and I am telling you this not to make you feel sorry for me, not to rewrite what happened or to cast blame in any direction. I am telling you this because somewhere out there is someone who still has time, someone who has not yet reached the moment where trying becomes too late. And if that person is listening right now, I want them to hear this clearly. Do not wait. Do not assume. Do not convince yourself that the people who love you will always be there when you finally decide to show up fully. Love is patient, but it is not infinite. And the people worth keeping are the ones who will eventually choose themselves. If you keep choosing everything else first, choose them now, while there is still time, while the door is still open, while trying still has somewhere to go.